The sticky note crinkled in Carrie's fingers, and the sound nearly stopped her heart. She had only been reaching for his extra charger, tucked beneath a folded layer of Albert's shirts, when her hand closed around something small and crumpled instead. A yellow square. The kind you scribble a grocery list on. The kind you leave someone a reminder with. She unfolded it. 4 words. Rushed handwriting. Ink pressed so hard into the paper it had nearly torn through. He isn't who you think he is. The room tilted. Carrie's hand flew to her mouth before the sound could escape, before the scream she didn't even know was climbing. Her throat could reach the air. She pressed the note flat against her lips, her knuckles white, her braids suddenly tight against a scalp that had gone electric with fear. Her dark eyes went wide, then wider, darting across the warm, amber-lit hotel room like a woman searching for a door that had just disappeared. And there he was, Albert. Her husband, God, the word felt like broken glass, now stood barely 12 feet away, completely at ease in the soft glow of the bedside lamp. His beige sweater was pushed up at the sleeves. His short brown hair was slightly mussed in that effortless, handsome way she had fallen in love with. He lifted a crisp white dress shirt from the pile on the bed, gave it a practiced shake, and began folding it into the open suitcase with the calm, unhurried movements of a man who had not one worry in the world. The suitcase was already packed with paradise. She could see it bursts of tropical color, a floral shirt she had teased him about, the ridiculous straw hat she had dared him to actually wear. Their flight left at 6 a.m. 14 days on a remote island. No crowds, no distractions, just the two of them. He laughed softly at something on the television, a low, warm, easy sound that had made her feel safe every single night for 11 months. His smile, half turned toward the screen, was so genuinely content it could have been a photograph in a frame. Husband of the year. Carrie did not move. She was a woman who had built her entire career on being precise. An accountant by training and by nature. She was the woman who read the fine print before she signed anything, who triple-checked figures before she submitted them, who had once caught a 6-figure discrepancy in a client's books because something had felt slightly off. Her colleagues called her unshakable. Her mother had always said her head was screwed on straighter than most. But Albert Barkley had walked into her carefully ordered life with that warm smile and those easy eyes. And she had let him rewrite every rule she had ever made for herself. 8 months of dating. A surprise proposal on a Tuesday. Not even a special occasion. Just a Tuesday with a ring that fit perfectly, and a speech that had made her cry. 3 months of wedding planning that had swept past her like a warm current. And now, 10 hours after standing at that altar, here she stood, in this hotel room, with her hand clamped over her mouth, and a stranger's warning note digging into her palm. She made herself breathe. In through the nose, out slow. She made herself look at the note one more time, as if the second reading might change the words. It did not. She folded it quietly, slid it into the inside pocket of her vest, right against her ribs, close as a second heartbeat. Then Carrie Ramirez did the hardest thing she had ever done in her life. She turned around, walked back to her own suitcase, and reached for a pair of sandals she didn't even need. "Did you pack the sunscreen?" she asked. Her voice came out steady, warm, even. Albert looked up, and that smile, that perfect, devastating smile, found her across the room. "Already in the front pocket," he said, and went back to his folding. "I've got us covered, babe. Every detail." Every detail. Carrie's fingers curled around the sandal strap until the buckle bit into her skin. Outside the hotel window, the city glittered in 1,000 harmless lights, sprawling and bright and completely unreachable. Tomorrow, they would leave it all behind. They would board a plane and fly to a tiny island where she would know no one, speak none of the language, and have no way to run. She would be completely alone with the man she had just married. She tucked the sandals into her bag, her hands perfectly steady. "Okay," she told herself quietly. "You've caught errors before that no one else could see. You've unraveled numbers that didn't add up until they finally did. This is just another problem. Start from the beginning. Find what doesn't fit. Don't let him see you looking. She glanced up. Albert was still smiling, smoothing the collar of his folded shirt, blissfully unaware that the woman across the room was no longer his blushing bride. She was something far more dangerous now. She was paying attention. Subscribe to see how this unfolds, and comment below, and tell me where you're watching from. I would absolutely love to say hello to you and find out just how far our story has traveled. She finished packing. That was the thing, nobody would ever understand how she finished packing. How she folded her linen dress and tucked her toiletry bag into the front zipper and zipped the whole suitcase shut with steady hands. How she laughed at the right moment when Albert made a joke about forgetting to pack socks. How she brushed her teeth standing beside him at the bathroom mirror, their reflections side by side, like a photograph of a happy couple, while the note burned against her ribs like a coal she couldn't drop. She had always been good at compartmentalizing. It was a professional skill, the ability to set emotion on a shelf and deal with the numbers in front of you. Tonight, she needed that skill more than she had ever needed anything. She climbed into bed at 11:30. Albert kissed her temple, murmured something soft about being the luckiest man alive, and rolled onto his side. Within minutes, his breathing slowed into the deep, even rhythm of a man with a clean conscience. Carrie lay on her back and stared at the ceiling. She listened to him breathe. She counted the seconds between each exhale, as if the pattern might tell her something, as if she could audit the man beside her the way she audited a balance sheet. She cataloged every memory she had of him, pulling them out one by one and holding them up to a new, colder light. The Tuesday proposal. The way he had always insisted on booking their travel himself, never letting her log into the accounts. The single time she had asked about his first serious relationship, and he had smiled and said, "Ancient history, not worth your time." She had found that charming then. She did not find it charming now. At some point, the city outside went fully quiet. The curtains glowed faint orange from the streetlights below. Albert shifted in his sleep and threw one arm across her waist, heavy and warm, and Carrie stopped breathing for a full 4 seconds. Then she made herself relax, muscle by muscle, until she felt like a woman who was simply sleeping. She did not sleep at all. The airport was its own kind of performance. Carrie had always hated early mornings, and Albert knew it. So he brought her coffee from the terminal cafe without being asked. Oat milk, 2 sugars. Exactly right. And she took it with a smile that she was beginning to understand was her most important tool. She wore it the way she wore her vest, layered over everything she actually felt, practical and protective. They cleared security. They found their gate. And somewhere over the Atlantic, cruising at 37,000 feet with a plastic cup of orange juice in her hand, Carrie began to actually listen to Albert in a way she never had before. He was telling the flight attendant, a young woman with a red scarf and a patient smile, about a trip he had taken to the island years ago. "You'll love the Eastern Coves," he was saying, leaning slightly into the aisle. His voice pitched at that register he used when he wanted someone to feel like the most important person in the room. "The water is this unreal shade of blue. I've never seen anything like it anywhere else." Carrie turned her cup slowly in her hands. 20 minutes earlier, while they were waiting to board, Albert had told her this would be his first time on the island. "A first for both of us," he'd said, squeezing her hand. "We'll discover it together." She had nodded and leaned into his shoulder and filed it away in the precise, silent column she was building in the back of her mind. She watched him charm the flight attendant for another 30 seconds. She watched the way the woman laughed, relaxed, and won over. And the way Albert accepted that warmth, like a man who had always known exactly how to collect it. He turned back to Carrie and caught her watching him, and his smile didn't falter for even a fraction of a second. "She gave us extra pretzels," he said, holding up the packet like a prize. "You're impossible," Carrie said, and she made her smile reach her eyes. She was getting better at that. The resort was staggeringly beautiful, which almost made it worse. The kind of beautiful that was designed to make you stop thinking. White villas threaded through lush green hillsides, bougainvillea spilling over every railing, the ocean so impossibly turquoise it looked painted. Their villa sat at the end of a private path, lined with torches that would be lit each evening by staff. There was a plunge pool on the terrace. There were fresh orchids on the pillow. Carrie stood in the center of the room and turned slowly, taking all of it in, and thought. He chose somewhere with no neighbors, and one road out. Albert was already tipping the bellman, already cracking the complimentary champagne with that easy laugh, already filling 2 glasses and crossing the room toward her, with both of them held up like a toast. "To us," he said. She clinked her glass against his. "To us." She let the champagne sit on her lips without drinking. The moment she had been waiting for came the next morning. Albert announced he was taking a shower. Long one. "I need to wash off 2 time zones." And she heard the bathroom door click shut, heard the water start, and gave it exactly 60 seconds before she moved. She went straight to his suitcase. Not the top layer, she knew better. Albert was meticulous. Everything on the surface was exactly as it should be. The tropical shirt, the linen shorts, the toiletries arranged with a neatness that had once struck her as endearingly particular. She pressed her hands along the base, then the sides, then the interior lining, her fingers moving with the practiced efficiency of a woman used to finding what was hidden inside a set of numbers. There, a seam along the left interior panel that didn't quite match the stitching on the right. She worked her thumbnail along the edge, and the lining peeled back to reveal a flat, zippered compartment, no wider than a hardcover book. Inside it, a black phone, no brand case, and a folded document. Her hands were shaking as she unfolded the document. She made them stop. It was a life insurance policy. Her name was printed across the top in clean, bureaucratic type. Carrie Ramirez Barclay. The beneficiary was listed as Albert James Barclay. The coverage amount sat in the middle of the page in a font size that seemed almost apologetic about what it was saying. $2.5 million. Payable in the event of accidental death. The shower was still running. She could hear him moving behind the door, unhurried, unaware. She photographed both sides of the document with her own phone, working fast. She photographed the burner phone before she opened it. Then she opened it. 3 contacts saved. No names, just numbers, labeled only as 1, 2, and 3. She memorized all 3. Put the burner phone back. Refolded the document exactly as she had found it, crease for crease. Pressed the lining back into place. By the time the shower shut off, she was standing on the terrace with her coffee, watching a pelican glide low over the water, her expression completely serene. She waited until the afternoon. Albert had gone to the resort's open-air bar to watch a football match go ahead. Explore. Love. This is your holiday too. And she walked down to the far end of the beach, where the waves were loud enough to swallow her voice, and she called the first number. Dead. No ring. Nothing. The second number rang 4 times and went to voicemail. A generic recording. She hung up. The third number rang once. Then a woman answered. The voice was quiet. Careful. The voice of someone who had learned a very long time ago to speak softly in case someone was listening. I wondered when you'd call, the woman said. I left that note 3 days before your wedding. I wasn't sure it would reach you in time. Carrie's throat was so tight she could barely form the words. Who are you? A pause. My name is Diana Mercer. Another pause, briefer, like she was bracing herself. I was Albert's wife. Before you. The pelicans were still gliding over the water. A child was laughing somewhere down the beach. The world was going on around her in full color, and Carrie felt like she was standing inside a glass box, perfectly still, completely sealed off from all of it. He told me you were dead, she said. I know, Diana said. That was the plan. She told it plainly, without drama, The way someone tells a story they have rehearsed alone too many times to have any emotion left in it. They had married young. A whirlwind romance, Carrie noticed the echo of her own story, and said nothing. Their honeymoon had been on a chartered sailboat. He had tried to drown her off the coast of a Greek island, staged to look like she had gone overboard drunk. She had fought. She had survived, barely, by clinging to a buoy for 4 hours in the dark until a fishing vessel found her. She had let him believe she was dead, because she understood, even waterlogged and half-drowned, that going back meant he would simply try again. She had spent 3 years tracking him. 3 years watching from a careful distance, gathering what she could, waiting until she had enough to stop him, and running out of time, because Albert did not stay still for long. He picks women who are independent, Diana said. Accomplished, pragmatic, women who wouldn't be expected to be reckless, so an accident reads as genuine. He takes out the policy in the first weeks. He chooses isolated locations with water access. He is very, very patient, and he is very good at seeming safe. Carrie looked down at her own feet in the sand. Pragmatic, she thought. He picked me because I seem unshakable, because no one would question it. The boat, she said. Is that what he's planning? It's what he always plans, Diana said. He'll suggest a private charter, sunset, romantic, somewhere far enough from shore that no one sees anything. The glass box around Carrie got smaller. How long do I have? If his pattern holds a week, maybe 10 days, he'll want you relaxed and unsuspecting first. Carrie looked back up at the resort, at the white villas bright in the afternoon sun, at the bar terrace, where Albert was watching football and drinking a beer and smiling at the bartender. I'll contact you again, she said. Don't go anywhere. I haven't gone anywhere in 3 years, Diana said quietly. I've been waiting for this. That evening, everything changed. Not loudly. Not in any way that would have been visible to a stranger, watching them at dinner, a honeymoon couple at a candlelit table on a terrace. The ocean spread out below them like dark silk, the man in the cream linen shirt reaching across to refill his wife's water glass. It was invisible, the shift. The kind of thing you could only detect if you were already paying very close attention. But Carrie was paying very close attention. It started with a question. She mentioned, lightly, that she had chatted with one of the housekeeping staff that afternoon. A woman named Rosa, who had told her about a local market in the village, 20 minutes up the road. We should go, Carrie said. She said the fruit is extraordinary. Albert smiled. We have everything we need right here, don't we? She let it go. Half an hour later, when the waiter came to take their dessert order, Carrie asked him a follow-up question about a boat tour company Rosa had mentioned. The one that did group excursions to the reef. The waiter had barely begun answering when Albert smoothly redirected the conversation, asking the man about the resort's private charter service instead. His hand moving to Carrie's as he spoke, his thumb pressing lightly across her knuckles. Not hard enough to hurt, just hard enough to feel like a door closing. She looked at his hand on hers. She thought about Diana in the water, clinging to a buoy in the dark. She looked back up at Albert, and she smiled. Private sounds more romantic anyway, she said. He squeezed her hand. That's my girl. That night, when she went to find her passport in the outer pocket of her carry-on, where she always kept it, it wasn't there. She checked every pocket twice, then a third time. She stood in the bathroom with the zip-top bag of her documents spread out across the vanity and looked at the empty space where the blue booklet should have been. She closed the bag. She put it back. She walked out of the bathroom and found Albert already in bed, already reaching for the lamp. She did not ask him about the passport. She already knew. Instead, she climbed into bed, and she lay in the dark beside the man who had taken it. And she thought, with the cold, crystalline focus of a woman who had spent her entire career finding order inside of chaos. You have made a mistake, Albert. You think you have taken away my way out. But I have never needed a door that was given to me. I build my own. Outside, The island hummed with night sounds, insects, water, the distant pull of the tide. Albert's breathing slowed beside her, easy and deep. Carrie sat up slowly in the dark, reached for the small notepad in her nightstand drawer, the one the resort left beside the welcome card, and in the faintest bleed of light from the curtain gap, she began to write. Not words, numbers, dates, sequences, the shape of a plan assembling itself in the only language she had ever fully trusted. 10 days, she thought. Let's see who outsmarts who. Are you Team Carrie? Or did Albert have you fooled all along? Let me know below in the comments section, and don't miss what comes next, because the truth is only just beginning to surface. 3 days passed like that, a careful, suffocating performance played out against a backdrop so beautiful it felt obscene. They snorkeled. They ate long, unhurried dinners. They watched the sun go down each evening from the terrace, Albert's arm around her shoulders. Carrie's head tipped against him at exactly the angle of a woman without a single concern in the world. She laughed at his jokes. She let him order for her. She said, "Whatever you think, babe, and you always find the best spots," and watched his confidence swell with each small surrender, like a man being slowly handed every card in the deck. She was giving them to him on purpose. On the 4th morning, he suggested a walk along the coastal cliffs. She knew the path, she had seen it from their terrace, a narrow trail that wound above the island's northern shore. Dramatic limestone dropping straight down to churning water, 40 feet below. She had noted it the way she noted everything now. Its distance from the resort, its lack of visibility from the beach, the fact that the trail was rarely used by other guests. She went anyway, because refusing would have cost her more than going. The view was genuinely breathtaking. The ocean out there was a deeper color, less turquoise, more indigo, restless in a way that the cove below the resort was not. Albert walked ahead of her on the narrow path, pointing out a frigate bird wheeling in the distance, entirely at ease. She watched his feet. She watched his hands. It happened quickly, and if she hadn't already been watching so carefully, she might have believed it entirely. A loose stone, a sudden slip, Albert's arm catching her at the waist just as she lurched toward the edge, his hands firm on her, his face arranged into an expression of pure alarm, the words, "Careful, careful. I've got you coming out warm and breathless." She grabbed his forearm and steadied herself and looked down at the water crashing against the rocks below. Then she looked at her feet. The stone she had supposedly slipped on was 6 inches behind her left heel. She had not been close enough to it to have kicked it loose. She had not slipped at all. She had felt his hand at the small of her back, a pressure, barely there, a half-second nudge before his arms came around her to save her. A rehearsal. Diana had used that exact word. He wants to know how close he can get before you react. He's measuring you. My heart, Albert said, pressing his forehead to hers, his eyes wide with manufactured relief. I thought, God, don't scare me like that. She pressed her hand flat to his chest. She felt his heartbeat, measured, unbothered, the heartbeat of a man who had done this before. I'm fine, she said softly. You caught me. She said it like it was the most reassuring thing in the world, and she watched something relax in him that had nothing to do with relief. She filed it away. That night, after Albert fell asleep, Carrie sat on the bathroom floor with the tap running and called Diana. He tested it today, she said. Cliffs above the North Shore. Then you have 4 days, maybe 5. Diana's voice was tight. He'll move soon. I know. Carrie pressed her back against the cool tile. I need you to make the call tomorrow. The number I gave you. Detective Reyes. I already reached out. He wants documentation. I have photographs of the policy. I have your testimony. I have the call log from the burner phone. She paused. It's enough to get them on the water. It has to be. Carrie. Diana stopped. When she spoke again, her voice had something in it that was older than fear. The voice of a woman who had spent 3 years, hoping someone would finally finish what she had survived. Make sure he confesses. On record. His word. Not just the documents. The documents alone. He'll find a lawyer, and he'll explain them away. He's done it before. Carrie thought about Albert's heartbeat under her palm. That terrible, even rhythm. Not nervous. Not guilty. Just patient. I know how to get a confession, she said. I interview clients for a living. I know how to make someone feel so certain they've already won, that they stop guarding what they say. A long silence. I believe you, Diana said. She became the perfect wife. Not the slightly guarded, quietly watchful version she had been managing. The real performance, radiant, tactile, completely won over by paradise. She woke the next morning and kissed Albert before he was fully awake. She suggested they take their breakfast down to the water and fed him pieces of mango, and laughed when juice ran down her wrist. She bought a ridiculous matching set of woven bracelets from a vendor near the resort gate, one for each of them, and tied his onto his wrist herself, while he smiled down at her like a man watching. Everything go according to plan. She needed him to feel exactly like that. She mentioned the boat again. Casually, wistfully, the way you mention something you want, but aren't pushing for. Rosa says the sunset from open water is unlike anything. Private charter, no other tourists, just the two of us. She sighed dreamily and moved on before he could respond, letting the idea sit in him and ripen on its own. He booked it the next day, told her over lunch, sliding his phone across the table to show her the confirmation, watching her face. She let her face do exactly what he needed it to do. Albert. She breathed the word like it was a gift. This is perfect. He reached across and tucked a braid behind her ear. Nothing but the best for my wife. That afternoon, while he napped, she made 2 calls. The first was to Detective Reyes, a quiet, unhurried conversation, conducted in the shadow of the villa's garden wall. Her voice, barely above a murmur. She gave him the charter company's name, the booking confirmation number she had memorized from Albert's phone screen, the departure time, the coordinates of the marina. He told her the Coast Guard vessel would maintain a distance until she activated the tracker. He told her not to deviate from the plan. She told him she wouldn't. Before he hung up, Reyes told her one more thing. A resort staff member he trusted would leave a small package at the villa's front desk before noon the next day. Addressed to her under a guest name. Inside it, she would find a satellite tracker, no larger than a matchbook, and a microphone the size of a shirt button, with adhesive backing. He told her exactly how to activate both. She wrote nothing down. She committed every word to memory, the way she committed figures. Precisely, permanently, without margin for error. The second call was to Diana. Shorter. She told her it was happening in 2 days. Diana was quiet for a moment, and then she said, I'll be on the first flight I can get. I want to be there when they bring him in. You should be, Carrie told her. You started this. You deserve to see how it ends. She went back inside and found Albert awake, stretching on the bed, squinting pleasantly in the late afternoon light, and she lay down beside him and rested her head on his chest and let him wrap his arm around her. She counted his heartbeats. She thought about the satellite tracker, small as a matchbook, already tucked into the lining of the bag she planned to carry onto the boat. She thought about the note still folded against her ribs. One more day, she told herself. Just one more day. The evening of the charter, the sky put on a show. Copper and rose, and a deep, burning amber that stretched from one horizon clean to the other, and the water below it caught every color and threw it back doubled, so that the little boat, moving out of the marina, felt like it was floating between 2 skies. Carrie stood at the bow in a white sundress she had chosen it deliberately. Something bright. Something visible from a distance, and she let the wind take her braids. And she looked like every photograph of a woman on her honeymoon that had ever been taken. The captain had been paid and dismissed at the dock. Albert had insisted on piloting the vessel himself. It's more romantic. Just us. and she had smiled and stepped aboard and felt the tracker press against her hip through the lining of her bag, like a second heartbeat. They were 20 minutes from shore when Albert cut the engine. The silence that replaced it was enormous. Just the soft slap of water against the hull, the creak of the boat settling, the last bleed of color going out of the western sky. No other vessels visible. The island behind them was a low, dark line, far enough away to be irrelevant. Carrie stood at the stern railing, looking out at the water. She heard Albert move behind her. She heard the particular quality of the silence change the way it will when a person stops pretending. "It really is something, isn't it?" he said. His voice was different. Not dramatic, not the movie villain shift she might have braced for, just flatter, like a piece of music that had stopped bothering with the melody. She turned around. He was standing 6 feet away, and the warm smile was gone. What was there instead wasn't cruelty exactly. It was something more unsettling than cruelty. It was patience. The look of a man who has been waiting a long time and is simply, finally, done waiting. "How long have you known?" he asked. She held his gaze. "Since the hotel room, the night before we flew." Something moved across his face. Not surprise, recalculation. "The note," he said. "I should have found it first." "Yes," she agreed. "You should have." He took one step toward her, and she held her ground, her back to the railing, the water 40 feet below, and the whole dark ocean behind her. And she said, "I want to understand something before this goes any further. Was any of it real? Any of it at all?" She asked it the way she had asked clients questions she already knew the answers to, open-toned, genuinely curious, inviting candor. She watched the question land in him. Watched him consider lying, and then watched him decide it didn't matter anymore. "You were exactly the profile," he said, and there was something almost like respect in it, which was the most chilling thing he could have said. Competent. Self-contained. No family close enough to ask hard questions. The kind of woman a jury looks at and thinks she could have slipped. She was independent, probably reckless, probably overconfident. He tilted his head slightly. The kind of woman people believe accidents happen to. "And the others," she said. "How many others?" He smiled. The old smile, warm, unbothered, but emptied of everything that had once given it meaning. "Does it matter?" "It does to me." "You're stalling," he said, and began to move. She pressed the tracker through the lining of her bag. One button. Held for 3 seconds. "I know about Diana," she said. He stopped. The name hit him differently than she had expected. Not guilt, not fear, but a swift, hard recalibration, like a man whose math has suddenly come back wrong. "Diana is dead," he said. "Diana is in the air right now," Carrie said. "She has been tracking you for 3 years." She left the note. And every word of this conversation, she touched the collar of her dress, where the microphone sat smaller than a button, broadcasting live, through the satellite signal now pinging from her bag. "Is being recorded by Detective Reyes of the island's National Police, who is currently on a Coast Guard vessel, approximately 8 minutes from this position." The silence after that was different from all the silences before it. Albert looked at her for a long moment. She watched him run the numbers, exit routes, variables, odds, watched him arrive at the answer the same way she had known he would. There was nowhere to go. There was only the water and the dark, and a woman who had spent 11 months being underestimated by him and had turned every single one of those days into evidence. He lunged. It was fast, and he was stronger than her, and for 4 seconds it was genuinely terrifying. His hands at her shoulders, her back hitting the railing, the ocean flashing below her in the last of the light. She drove her elbow into his forearm the way Diana had told her to. He goes for the shoulder, always the shoulder, and it broke his grip enough for her to drop low and move laterally, putting the center console between them. "Albert." Her voice was steady. She needed it to stay on the recording steady. "There is nowhere to go." He stood on the other side of the console, breathing hard, and for the first time in 11 months, she watched him look like something other than a man entirely in control of his world. Then the light hit them. It came from the northeast, a searchlight, blinding and absolute, turning the whole boat white. The sound of the Coast Guard vessel's engine arrived a second later, deep and authoritative, cutting through the water toward them with the particular momentum of something that does not stop. Albert turned toward the light, turned back to her. Something in his face went through several quick changes: strategy, anger, a last calculation, before it settled into a stillness that she recognized as a man accepting an outcome he cannot rewrite. He sat down on the hull bench. She stood with the railing at her back and the light on her face, and she breathed. They put handcuffs on him at the stern of the Coast Guard vessel. She watched from 10 feet away as two officers moved with the practiced efficiency of people who had been briefed and were doing exactly what they had prepared to do. Diana was waiting at the marina. She had flown 11 hours from a city she had never named, on a ticket she had bought, the moment Carrie called her, and she was standing just beyond the dock lights in a dark jacket with a travel bag still slung over one shoulder. A woman who had not even stopped to check into a hotel, because there was only one thing she had come here to see. Carrie saw her before Albert did, a woman in her 40s, slight, with close-cropped natural hair and a dark jacket she had clearly been traveling in for hours. She stood with her arms at her sides and her chin level, and there was nothing performative about her stillness. She simply stood, the way people stand when they have been waiting a very long time and have finally, irrevocably, arrived. Then they brought Albert down the gangway in cuffs. He saw Diana, and he stopped walking. The officer behind him kept moving, and Albert had to move too, but his eyes stayed on her the whole length of the dock, wide, unblinking, the face of a man confronting something he had written out of the story and found waiting for him at the end of it anyway. Diana did not flinch. She watched him go past her. She watched the police vehicle doors close behind him. She watched the lights pull away. Then she exhaled long and slow and complete. And Carrie, standing beside her, understood that the sound was 3 years of wait, leaving a body, all at once. Neither of them spoke for a little while. The marina was quiet around them, just water and rope and the soft idle of engines, and the island at their backs, going on with its ordinary night. "Thank you," Diana finally said. "You started it," Carrie said. "I just finished it." She flew home 4 days later, not because she had to. Detective Reyes had made it clear she could leave once her statement was filed, and she filed it the morning after the arrest, methodical and complete. Every detail precise, every date exact. Detective Reyes returned her passport that same morning, retrieved from the false bottom of Albert's carry-on, where it had been sitting alongside 2 others, neither of them belonging to Carrie. She stayed the extra days, because leaving felt like something she needed to choose deliberately, not flee toward. She swam in the cove every morning. She ate breakfast alone on the terrace and drank her coffee slowly, and watched the pelicans, and let the silence be simply silence. Not a threat, not a performance, just quiet. On her last evening, she sat on the bed and took the yellow note out for the first time since she had hidden it against her ribs in that hotel room. It was soft now, worn along the folds from 10 days of living against her body, tucked first into the pocket of her vest on the night she found it, then transferred each morning to whatever she was wearing, close to her ribs, close as a second heartbeat. The ink had faded slightly from the warmth of being carried, but the words were still perfectly legible, and she read them one last time with the unhurried attention of someone who no longer needs them. Then she went out to the terrace and held the corner to the flame of the citronella candle and watched it catch. She held it until the last possible second and then set it down on the stone railing and watched it finish burning, the yellow paper going amber, then black, then a small curl of ash that the ocean breeze took and scattered before it ever reached the ground. She went back inside and finished packing. Really packing this time. Her own clothes, her own things, and zipped her suitcase shut, and stood back and looked at the room. The orchids were still on the nightstand. The plunge pool on the terrace was still lit from below, a soft blue square in the dark. Everything was exactly as beautiful as it had been the day she arrived. She picked up her bag and walked out. On the plane home, somewhere above open water, she opened a new note on her phone. Not yellow, not someone else's warning. A blank white screen, cursor blinking. She thought about Diana, who had survived the water, and then spent 3 years making sure no one else went under. She thought about all the women Albert had described as the profile, self-contained, competent, no one close enough to ask the hard questions. She thought about how the most dangerous lie he had ever told was not any of the stories about his past, or his family, or his money. It was the quieter lie, the one that had worked on her. The one that said, "Your instincts are just fear. Your caution is just damage. Stop analyzing everything and just feel." She had stopped. She would never stop again. She began to type, not a story, not yet, just notes, markers, the shape of something that would eventually become a resource, a warning, a hand reaching back toward the women who were still standing in hotel rooms. Somewhere with a note in their hand, and nowhere to turn, and no language yet for what they were feeling. She had that language now. She would not keep it to herself. The plane banked east into the early morning, and Carrie Ramirez, not Ramirez Barkley, not anymore, never again watched the horizon go from black to gray to a pale. Clean gold. And she thought, I came back. Now let's get to work. Hit subscribe and turn on notifications because you do not want to miss what comes next. This story is about to go deeper than you think. The next chapter drops soon, and trust me, you are not ready for the truth about how far back this really goes. See you in the next one. If Albert's other victims are still out there waiting to be found.